Kingdom men should be the heroes of the house. The first to say, ain't no evil in my house. See, as for me and my...
Hey, well, welcome everybody to another show on the Underground Railroad with Sam and Abe. Today, we're going to be fielding some questions, and Abraham is going to be the one that I'm going to try to ask some questions to. We're on the same topic about fatherhood and the effects of fathers being there or not being there, their role. And we're on to the third question with Abe, and that's what's the greatest pitfalls for fathers, and how can you avoid them? So, Abe, man, what's the greatest pitfall being a father?
I believe like the greatest pitfall of being a father um, is not teaching your children about there's hope, there's salvation, there's rest in Christ. Um, and because I say that because we look around the world today and we see the things that we see, and people are always trying to fill a void in monetary things, physical things. They're trying to fill a void that only God can fulfill. And so that's how people. I believe that's how a lot of people get into drugs, some form of addiction. And so I believe like the greatest pitfall, the great disservice we do for our children is not teaching them about Christ, not teaching them there's hope in Him, not letting them know that this life isn't really all that there is. Um, so for me, that's the greatest pitfall. Um,
Okay, it's basically neglect.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that would be
Okay.
me. Because if you think about it,
Yeah.
right? If you think about it, because if you teach your children about who Christ is, who Jesus is, you have this fundamental belief system about in Christ, and teaching your children, molding them, right? And so you're going to take everything, the biblical principles, and not only and apply them not only into your life but in their lives. And so you're going to build a relationship with them. You know what I'm saying? You're going to have uh, uh, um, one that's just governed by love, one that's governed by truth. I'm not saying that everything's going to be, um, you know, happy go lucky, but you have a direction where you can go, and it will eliminate a lot of negative uh, aspects. And when it comes to parenting, if you were to ask me anyway. So yeah, that's mine.
So, with that one being the greatest pitfall, what's the most difficult part of raising a child and trying to implement those type of strategies in the child's life of hope in Jesus Christ? What's the most difficult part of that?
So the most difficult part of that is because, like, once again, we live in a world that's based on what you taste, what you can see, what you can feel, and so that especially when it comes to children, um, and they really and truly have a grasp about uh, what 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 Christianity is, I guess you can say. Um, they go off by what they see every day. They go off by what they hear every day, and those are people they surround themselves in schools or friends or neighborhood and stuff like that. And especially if you got a parenting, like if you might be at work all day, so you become secondary. So the biggest thing that the hurdle that I believe that parents face in this life that we live, especially Christian parents, is that instead of us raising our children, the world is raising our children. And when the world raises our children, when we begin to teach and preach them about who Christ is, what He has done, it the world drowns that out. And especially if you don't live it, if you're not living it, and that they most definitely isn't going to hear that. We live in a world today
Yeah.
that based on me, myself, and I. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. So, tell me this: what is the most important need of a child? If you think of needs outside of spiritual needs, what's the most important need that you have to meet as a parent, and how do you go about meeting it?
Okay, so the most important need for a child is ultimately is love. Love, them just being attentive. Um, you know, I put like this, like growing up, when I was growing up, and I was into sports real heavy, and and there were times like, man, I see all the other parents around at their children's game, but I look around, my parents not around, and like just being validated, you know what I'm saying? Just like, hey, good job, you know what I'm saying? That's my boy out there, you know what I'm saying? Just that, like, hey, just that recognition, you know what I'm saying? Seeing them, right? I believe sometimes that the parents can get so busy in life they forget that they forget to see their children, and so the greatest need is for us to recognize our children, love on them, encourage them, motivate them, you know. So yeah,
So yeah, just really be there, like be a
yeah,
tangible presence in their life.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Here's a when your child has failed, how does that affect you, and should you blame yourself?
Uh, so that's kind of like a hard one because when your children do fail, of course you're going to question what could I've done different, what could I've done better. But then um, you think about those who have the money, right? Who give the children everything they want, everything they need, but yes, they fail or may end in prison, may become addicted and stuff like that. So, but when I'm looking from that aspect, at that point of view, it's really, um, it's not really on me, right? Only thing I'm just gonna do, I can
Yeah.
lead, I can guide them, I can, you know what I'm saying, be the best I can be. But I reckon in my own heart, in my own mind, that they have their own decisions they have to make in life. And with the decisions they make in life, it's my job as a parent to be there or a grandfather to be there along the way.
Yeah. 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 So it sounds like just kind of be present, but you're not responsible for their actions. They become an age they're fully accountable. And so man, I don't want to say I talked to a bunch of parents, but like I've either talked to them or I've kind of through the grapevine, and it's like I know some of the most wonderful people I've ever met in my life, and like then you see their kids' life, and they're in prison, they're on drugs, they don't want anything to do with God, but they were raised in the church. They did, you know what I mean? Like they did
Yeah,
everything, but they sit there and they just, man, they're broken hearted. Like they're in tears over these kids, and and they blame themselves. And what word of encouragement would you have to a parent that, yeah, hey, everybody screws up, like, and but to not take that on them, to lift the weight of responsibility off of them? What would you say to those people that just like they can't seem to shake that sense of responsibility for their kids' failings in their life?
yeah. I would say that you can only do the best that you can do. If you know that you've done everything that you could have done to help them, to propel them in life, help them succeed, help them go forward in life, then don't hold that. Everybody has
Yeah,
a choice they have to make. Everybody is responsible for their own decision they make. And so I would say don't own their bad choices. Don't own their bad choices.
so what if you did screw up? What if from ages, 0 to 12, man, you had a drug habit, you know what I mean? Maybe you had your kids selling some drugs at school, and you completely radically changed your life, and you quit doing that. Now your kids have gotten older, and they've turned into the bad apples. That you definitely progressing down that field, but and you keep just letting them live in the house, and you feel bad, and they just stay in the house, and they're like, you can't tell me nothing. You raised me this way. This is your fault. What do you say to a parent that's like feeling like they're trapped in a situation with their kids, and their kids are just like, you raised me this way, it's your fault, or you weren't there, you were in prison, or you know what I mean, you introduced me to this lifestyle, even though you changed your way, it's too late.
Yeah, so it's amazing that you said it because I know someone who's actually in that same predicament what you're talking about. That once upon a time she
Yeah,
was in drugs, she was addicted, came out of her addiction, but now her own children, both her children, are addicted in some form and fashion. And I was counseling her, I was talking to her, I was like, man, I know it's rough, you know what I'm saying? And she felt guilty, like some of the stuff that she's done and the role she played. And and I said, man, you can't beat yourself up. You know what I'm saying? So don't beat yourself up to the point to where you feel like you had really truly dropped the ball. As long as your child is still alive, as long as they still have breath in their lungs, you see, the one thing about our bad choices, past mistakes, is that we learn from them, we can grow from them, so that we can turn around and help someone else. So, in this situation, that's our own children. Is it going to be hard? Yes. You know, right? And so it comes to the
yeah,
point, like I told her, you cannot continue to enable them. If you continue to enable them, you do them a great disservice. And not only that, that is one of the greatest pitfalls too. You know what I'm saying? Is enable them, right? Give them excuse. And so I was like, man, sometimes, man, self love is the only love at the end of the day because you know the route, where they been, what they going through, and what it has done to you, and you know how hard it was to come out of that. So, so we have the greatest insight when it comes to escaping those addictions, those heartaches, those pains, and stuff like that. So that's what I would say.
so where do you know you failed as a father, and how have you attempted to fix it?
So I know without sharing that I failed as a father when I went to prison. So my daughter, she was 8 months old when I went to prison, and my son, he's like he was born 2 months after I went to prison. So oh yeah, and I was in prison for a very long time. You know what I'm saying? Like 28 and a half years. And so I watched my children grow up through the prison system. And so um and as they grew older and we began to talk and develop our relationship as I expressed to them my regret, my sorrow about leaving them. Um, I apologized, right? And but that's the only thing I can do, other than being who God has called me to be, other than being the best version, grandfather, the father that he needs today, who I wasn't back then. Because back then I still wouldn't be no good anyway, to be honest, be real with you, right? And so it actually took for me to go to prison to become a kingdom man, right? And so yeah, that would be my answer.
So that's a tough situation to be in. And I mean, I've sat here in prison with your son and talked to him, and and he's heard a lot about you, and he definitely looks forward to getting out and find out who you are. And one thing I told him, I was like, man, he's got big shoulders, man. He can take it. You can shoot him straight. And I mean, I guess that's one of the things that I really look forward to. Because he's excited to get out and get to know you, and man, I'm really excited to for him to get to know you. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be a wonderful experience for you, and just seeing you be able to
Yeah,
mold him into the man that you believe God wants him to be. And but he also obviously has his walls up in sense because of the fact that you came here. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
he has hurts, like real live hurts about, like, like you came there, like, I think feeling like, you know what I mean, you if you were thinking about me, you know what I mean, like you wouldn't have done that. You know what I mean? Now I've had to grow up without a father, and Uh, and there's that's that every man in here has to live with, that has children has to live with those type of things. And so this next question kind of fits in with it because whether it's a father going to prison or just doing something that they regret in raising their kids and maybe didn't do everything perfect to a T, from some Dr. Phil book. Um, I've heard it said that 98% of unforgiveness is directed at parents. So if that's true, and you are the one holding on to this bitterness, what is the best way to approach your parents and bring restoration? That's if you and your parents are alive. If you're the one holding on to bitterness, how do you approach your parents and try to make amends and restoration? And the follow-up to that will be, if you're the parent and you suspect this in your children, how should you bring restoration in those circumstances?
So, so for me, I'll say if I know that, like the whole bitterness between um, my parents towards me, and I know that, I would say that you really everything is something I continue to preach every day. Uh, for the one step, one day at a time, right? One step, one day, and so, and that revolves around love. Love is hard, to be honest with you, right? Love is hard. But the more you continue to love, one day, one step at a time, you know what I'm saying? Just being there, being considerate, having the best interest at heart, not being selfish, making yourself available, and also, you know what I'm saying, um, affording them the opportunity to be like, okay, it's okay, right? You know, I can say it's okay, you know what I'm saying? Um, and vice versa. But the number one thing that I believe that can break any shackle, and that's love and being consistent in that. And that's one day, one step at a time. Now, now the other part of your question, like say for instance, my son or my daughter may have some form of unforgiveness towards me, based because I was in prison for such a long time that I left them behind without a father figure, and things like that. And so the one way I can approach that, one way I have approached it is, once again, is by love. Like I said, love is hard. Um, and continue just to be there, continue just to talk with them, and at the ultimately try to help them understand that at such a young age of 17, when I first caught my case, that was a young man, a teenager. You know what I'm saying? Just trying to walk them through the steps, of my life back then, and just no comparison back then who I was then to who I am now. That's night and day. But once again, man, love. That's all it is. And love is hard, right? It bears all things, believe all things, hope all things, endure all things. Love never ends, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate that, and for you to being honest and trying to field some pretty hard questions that I'm sure most like guys don't really necessarily want to talk about, and that's like their failures. It's not exactly the funnest topic, but we're probably gonna have a few other fellows on here talking about these different things, and people are listening. Like if you're like, man, I have a good question to ask Abe, or hey, I would like to reach out. Feel free to, and we thank you guys for listening in on our conversation, and Abe obviously will be with me the next one hosting, and probably not fielding as many questions. And so Abe, I appreciate it. I'm sure all the other people appreciate it. So until next time,
The
we
king of
wish you all
men
the
should be
best,
the
and
heroes of the
God bless you.
house.
See you
The
next
first
time
to
on the
say,
Underground
ain't no
Railroad.
evil in my
Yeah,
house.
peace.